Okay, so ask the question.
Duncan, how do bees feel?
Hi, I'm Kayla.
And I'm Pete, and welcome to How I Hobby.
We're two pals and hobby obsessives with over 100 hobbies between us.
And we're always on the lookout for more.
Join us as we talk about all of our hobbies.
And talk to people we know about their really cool hobbies.
Welcome to How I Hobby. In today's episode, we've got a great interview with Duncan Brown, whose hobby has really created a buzz. But first, Kayla, how do you hobby?
Well, Pete, I'll tell you. I go hiking.
Very nice.
Thank
Excellent.
Thank you.
I have seen on your Instagram many hiking photos from all around the world, and I think that is very, very cool. Is this something that you've done all your life?
So it's an interesting one, Pete. I, as a kid, did loads of canoe trips, like multi-day canoe trips in the summers in Canada. But I didn't, and I always liked walking, but I didn't really get into proper hiking until I moved to the UK 8 years ago. And then it's taken off. So I've done loads of really fun day hikes.
Yeah.
I've done loads of really interesting multi-day hikes in the UK and other parts of the world.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's been really fun.
What for you has been your favourite place to go hiking?
I think my favorite place to go hiking has been, I did the Annapurna Circuit in Nepal a few years ago, which was really cool. It was about almost 2 weeks of hiking between 6 to 8 hours a day and going up to the crossing point. The highest that we went was 5,400 meters, which was really cool. And it's one of the things that I like about hiking. There are many things I like about hiking as a hobby. Yeah. One of them are all the cool places that you can see. Yeah. One of them is being outside in general. But my most favorite part about hiking is the interesting conversations with the people that I meet. Yeah. So most of the hiking, I haven't really gone hiking on my own. Yeah. I normally go either with friends or I'll join a group and meet lots of people who I'd never met before. And it's so cool to me, the new perspectives, kind of the way people see the world. Yeah. And sometimes it can be very different to the way I see the world. And that's one of my most favorite parts, is sort of the mind expanding thing about meeting new people in an environment where there's literally nothing else to do. Excellent. But be silent or chat.
Love it.
Yeah, it's been really fun.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Fantastic. Have you got anything planned?
I am hoping to go back to the Alps agnostic, aka it could be French, it could be Austrian,
Alps agnostic?
it could be
I've not
Italian.
heard that before.
I'm Alps agnostic.
Okay,
I was hiking
in
the Italian Alps last summer.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to get back to the Alps this summer. But if the Alps are not in the 2024 plan, I'm actually thinking about doing a multi-day hike in England. Right. Yeah. So whether it's part of the South Downs kind of path, or even the Thames path.
Lovely.
I'm thinking about doing maybe 1 or 2 days doing that.
Thames path is like a good beginner's one, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's
all
meant
very
to be all flat, super
yeah.
accessible, not too far from London.
Yeah.
I'd love to do Hadrian's Wall.
I was going to say, I would love. I've only been hiking, once or twice in my life, and once we were up a mountain in Scotland, and it did not go well. Here's a photo. Yeah, it's not good. We did not check the weather forecast properly. Anyway, but I would love to do Hadrian's Wall, because obviously that's my neck of the woods, is where I come from, and it just looks, the countryside up there is just so beautiful.
Yeah,
and so,
it's cool. Yeah. I'd really like to do that. I want to do the Camino de Santiago in Spain. There's so many things. Yeah, so many places I want to go. But I think the UK is probably what's next on the horizon. But yeah, I love it. I love being outside. I love the interesting people that I've met, and I think we've heard it in other people talk about kind of physical activity as in their hobbies and what they've got out of it. But pushing yourself to do something that you didn't necessarily think was possible, like this Nepal trip, I was so scared going into it. Like, what if I don't make it? Am I going to be able to keep up with the group? And in fact, I came back. Like, I've never had so many obscure muscles in my whole life. They're half the muscles in my shoulders. I was like, I didn't know those were things. Oh. So it was really cool, like, how your body can propel you forward.
Jacked.
There you go. Jacked. Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. That's really, really cool. Thank you very much, Kayla. And now, on with our episode.
Woo! Duncan Brown is an almost retired forensic phone expert. During the day, he advises lawyers and investigators on mobile phones in serious crime. He lives in Oxfordshire with his dogs, chickens, and his wife. Duncan, tell us, how do you hobby?
I am a beekeeper.
Cool!
Yes!
Duncan,
Excellent.
that is so cool. How did you get into this? How long have you been doing this?
I guess, 14, 15 years, just looking for a hobby after the kids had left home, and interested in all things nature. So yes, signed up for a beekeeping course at the local agricultural college, and the instructors turned out to be leading members of my local beekeepers association.
Wow.
Excellent.
Shout out to, what is the association called, Duncan?
South Chilterns Beekeepers Association.
Okay, shout out to South Chilterns Beekeepers Association.
Yes, indeed.
Cool. That's so exciting.
Brilliant stuff. What made you think of beekeeping? Is it something that you've always wanted to do, that you've always thought of? Or
Yeah, of all the things in nature. What was it about beekeeping?
I don't know, really. I think there was probably, at that time, there was a lot in the press about problems of pollinating insects generally. And my brother's big in the nature conservation world. I just followed on, really. Let me do something. And, beekeeping sounds interesting, as it turned out to be.
Wow. So you're doing this for 14 years.
Yeah.
How have you progressed in the beekeeping hobbyist world? Like, what was year 1 like versus what is year 14?
Well, I still make lots of mistakes.
Yeah.
But they're more advanced mistakes. The year 1, you don't know what you're doing. Year 2, you think you know, and now I got to the point where I'm never going to know it all. They constantly surprise you in what they do. I'm still waiting for what everybody calls a normal year, because I've never had one yet.
Oh, wow.
In terms of advancing, the umbrella organisation is the BBKA, British Beekeepers Association.
Okay.
So they run examinations. So I've been working my way through the theory and practical examinations.
Oh, cool.
That is so cool.
If I get to the point of having done all of the examinations and all of the practical assessments, I would end up as a master beekeeper.
Oh my God.
Do you get like a black belt for that? Is that black
Yeah,
belt?
exactly. That's a black belt in beekeeping.
Amazing.
Yes,
Oh my, this is like the sommelier version of beekeeping.
So the last exam that you did, for example, what happens in that exam?
What do you get tested on?
There's 7 theory exams if you want to do all of them, and each one follows a particular subject. And that's a 2-hour written exam, I think.
Wow.
Intense. And what about the practical exams? What does that involve?
The basic one I've done already is just a simple assessment of, do you know how to inspect your bees? The next level, you have to demonstrate how you breed new queens, how you make your honey. You have to show your capability with wax processing and so on, whether you make candles, what different types of honey you make.
Oh my God, I have so many questions, Duncan, from everything you've just said. Did you start with 1 hive and then in year 7 you thought, I'm going to have 11 hives and now you have 36? How has that expanded?
That is a pattern that some people follow. Yes, like most, I started with 1.
Yeah.
And it's recommended you have 2 or 3, because you will sometimes lose a colony, will die out over winter. I think at maximum I was up to 10 hives, and I'm currently at 5.
Because they passed away, or you've gifted them, or how?
A bit of a mix, just to stop them just swarming. One of the things you do is split the hive, and then I tend to give the hive away to a new beekeeper.
It's like sourdough. It's exactly like sourdough.
It is just, yes.
Oh, you've touched on it already, but what do you feel about and how do you approach the sort of conservation and ecology side of things?
Well, having started with the honeybee, I have become much more interested in pollinating insects in general, because something like 70% of the world's vegetables need a pollinating insect. So, you hear horror stories of in parts of China, they're having to hand pollinate the apple trees because they haven't, the insects have been wiped out.
Crikey. And you have to wear little bee costumes when you're doing it and everything. It's
joking?
Yes.
I was wondering as well, when you think about the whole ecosystem, I'm wondering, like, your gardening, your green thumb, how has that expanded in addition to this beekeeping hobby?
I think I've become sort of aware of nature in the way I realise farmers probably always are, that you have to follow the seasons. What will the bees be doing now? What's flowering? yes, you're thinking about what are the bees going to be feeding on now? What's the weather doing? So yeah, there is a much greater connection to nature. You need to be aware of what's going on in nature too.
And have you been proactively planting a wider variety of flowers and bushes and trees in your neighborhood?
Well, certainly in our own patch of land, yeah, just encouraging people generally, stop cutting your lawn a bit, but it's great for insects. And yeah, we've planted a patch that is specifically for pollinators. So yeah, everybody can do a little bit. Things like fancy flowers tend not to have any nectar in them. So you want the simpler varieties of flowers, and
Cool.
a broad variety of flowers is always good for bees. They need a good selection of nectar and a good selection of pollen.
It's really cool.
Brilliant.
I have another quick question for you, Duncan.
Go.
You mentioned the mead, the wax, the awareness of all these other, I'm going to call them byproducts of beekeeping, or sort of ancillary things connected to beekeeping. In
Ancillary,
addition,
that's a good word.
thank you. I have
Like
used it in season 1 as well.
Excellent.
But I'm wondering, has the Brown family created their own factory? And now there's a candle brand, and there's a honey brand, and there's a mead brand. What's going on behind the door of your office?
Here we go.
So that's a jar of my honey, which I do sell locally.
Yeah.
And give away to family and friends. And the best of the bunch is one of those, which is
Yes.
The
comb honey. So yeah, that's the kind of premium product which I don't
Amazing.
sell because I'll keep it to myself and family only.
Yeah.
Quite
okay.
right.
Hide it-
Quite right.
Hide it in the freezer.
Yeah.
Oh, that
Now
is.
I've got sticky fingers.
Oh, love
And
it.
are you
I
making
love honey.
candles too? What else is happening there?
Yeah. So that's a block of wax
Wow.
that's come out of my solar extractor. Most of it I trade back with the beekeeping suppliers. So they'll take your wax. So I can sell that directly to them or trade that in
Oh, cool.
for more wax sheets.
All right.
So it's like a barter system almost.
Yes, it's exactly that. So that is a sheet of foundation wax.
And then they use that to start building from. Yeah.
So that's a frame from the brood box.
Yeah.
So that's the part of the hive where the queen lives.
Yeah.
And then above that is another box, which
Yeah.
is the so-called super, where the honey is stored and made.
Yeah. So for those who are listening and not necessarily watching on YouTube,
Yes.
although we encourage you to watch on YouTube,
Do.
Duncan is now Vanna Whiting the entire inner workings. Or Vanna White is a Wheel of Fortune reference for those North American
What?
listeners.
Carol Smiley for our UK listeners.
Okay, so
Yeah,
there we go.
demonstrating the
We got
prizes.
the North
See ya.
American, we got the Canadian, the North American UK version. Duncan is showing us all the inner workings of this sideways shelving system that is the hive.
Eventually, what you end up with is one of those.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So that is a full wooden frame of honey.
Whoa. Yeah.
So
And then
I can taste it. Oh, I love it. I love
All
honey.
the
smell
way.
in my office is divine at the moment. Honey and beeswax, lovely.
Actually, I'm actually salivating.
Yeah, and what do you do with that, Duncan? Are you able to then extract that into your own honey, or do you take it to a machine, or do you have a machine? What happens from this point that you're showing us right now?
I share basically a centrifuge.
Okay.
So to extract the honey, I just use like a hot air gun to melt that covering and then put it in the centrifuge, spin it, and all the honey comes flying out.
So the other thing you have for those who are listening and not watching, we can see behind, is you have your beekeeping costume behind there, Duncan.
Yes.
Would you
yes.
call it a costume?
Outfit? Suit?
Suit, yes.
I mean, part of me was hoping you'd be wearing it throughout this entire conversation.
Maybe we'll get a couple. We'll wear them in the intro.
It's all nice and white and shiny because I only bought it last weekend at there's a beekeepers convention.
Of course there is. Every hobby has a convention of some sort, which is one of the things we love it. That every hobby, it has a community of people involved with it, and then a convention associated with it, so everybody can get together and nerd out about their hobby, and it's so cool. It's brilliant.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 3 days of full-on nerding about my hobby. Yes, yeah. I went to one which was wax in medieval times, and it was somebody's PhD the importance of wax in medieval Britain was oh, that sounds interesting.
I love it.
So
love
interesting.
it.
The wax was much more valuable than the honey because wax burns with a sort of smoke-free flame. Only the wealthiest households could afford wax candles.
Yeah.
And of course, the churches bought up literally tons of wax. So
Wow.
to get in your good books with your church, you would buy them pure wax. Most of which in medieval times came from the German forests, apparently.
So not only is this a hobby, Duncan, that you're creating honey, you're helping to sustain and grow a thriving ecosystem, you're also like taking many, many history lessons. Like this hobby has so many other interesting things.
It's spread into everything. I love it. So what is your favourite thing about your hobby as a whole?
Do you know, I think teaching, I love the teaching of it. Getting new beekeepers and getting them all excited about learning to handle their own new colony of bees.
Oh, that's
so yeah,
lovely.
that's become one of my favourite things to do.
I love that. That's what's wonderful.
And then there is something very calm and relaxing on a nice, warm, sunny afternoon out in the garden. The gentle hum of the bees, and the smell, you know, on a warm day. The smell of the honey and the wax coming out of the hive. And yes, that is lovely.
How would you advise someone to get into beekeeping, just as a complete beginner? Like, what do you need? How much space do you need?
And as you answer this question, I will also caveat with the number of my friends that I have told that we are having a beekeeper as part of season 2.
Yeah.
So many friends who are so curious about getting into beekeeping. So no pressure, Duncan, but like our audience is very keen for how you're about to answer this.
Yeah.
I would say don't buy anything until you've made contact with your local association.
Okay.
Go along to some demonstrations. You are taking on a livestock, you know, and you have to be committed to doing it. You can't. Some people have this idea of, I'll have a box of bees at the bottom of the garden and I'll get a jar of honey now and again. No, it does require commitment from your part.
Yeah.
You know, you do need, during the summer months, you've got to spend sort of an hour a week with the bees, looking after them.
Yeah.
So go along to a local association. They'll usually run demonstration days or training days, and you very quickly get a feel for what you want. You don't need a huge amount of space.
Yeah.
You know, plenty of people have a colony of bees on their flat roofed garage in their suburban house.
Really?
Yeah. It sounds like you mentioned it takes about an hour commitment a week. Would you say that's the totality of it, or are there other elements? Like, what is the time commitment?
That's the kind of your minimum.
Yeah.
But then the sky's the limit as to how much time you want.
Yeah.
You know, you've got woodworking to build your wooden boxes.
Oh my God.
I barely know one end of a hammer from the other.
No. So you know that part of the practical training, how to put the equipment together so it doesn't fall apart.
Is there a best place on earth to be a beekeeper, Duncan? Or is it sort of whatever environment you create for yourself?
The bottom of your own garden is probably the best place.
Oh, that's really nice.
That's so sweet.
I can just wander out of the house and put my suit on, wander down the garden.
I've got a question. I mean, I don't want to be contentious with this, but
He says as he's contentious. Yes.
no. Well, because as you said earlier, bees they're like livestock. They are creatures. They are living beings. So that wasn't a pun, but still, it's so hard to avoid them. How do you care for the bees? How do you actually make sure that they are healthy? Do they get diseases? Do they have to, I don't know, if one of them breaks one of their legs, do you have to put a little splint on it? What happens?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean, you're looking after them at the colony level. So every inspection is about checking on their general well-being. Have they got enough food to see them through to when I next come and inspect them? So yesterday I went and gave them some extra feed just because it's been so wet now. For so long, they can't get out in very wet weather to forage. So, you know, that's kind of making sure that I'm looking after their needs. I am keeping them in an artificial environment. So, yes, I am aware I'm doing that.
Yeah.
And it is unnatural to be keeping them 5 hives side by side. In the wild, there's not many places that support feral colonies. There's been some great finds of where there are bees still living properly in the wild. But unfortunately, like so many things, international trade means international diseases. So the varroa mite came to this country 20, 30 years ago and wipes out many colonies. So you need chemical treatments to try and kill the mites without killing your bees. So there's different ways of trying to manage that for their own health.
What's the thing in the over your right shoulder?
Is it a paddle? Is it an oar?
It is a paddle from a traditional Japanese shark fishing canoe.
Wow.
Of course it is.
Okay, so,
of course it is.
So then that leads...
Why didn't I think of that? Shark fishing canoe. Japanese shark fishing canoe.
That leads into my question, which is how, amongst all these interesting things that we can see on screen here, how does beekeeping fit in with all of your other hobbies?
I need to retire so I can spend more time.
That's the short answer.
That's it, yeah,
that's the short answer to the long question. Sounds good.
Duncan, what's something about bees that you think people probably may not know?
May not know or would probably find interesting is how the queen gets mated. So in a typical colony, you have one queen, a couple of thousand drones, which are the males, and 50,000 females who are the workers. Let's talk about the drones first. The males, they're good for nothing, but they sit around the hive all day eating, and their sole purpose in life is to go out and mate.
Wow, what a life.
But it doesn't end well, whether they succeed or not. So if it doesn't go well and they fail to mate during the season, come the autumn time, all the girls kick out all of the boys because they're just mouths to feed over the winter. They don't want them, so they literally kick them out to die.
Wow.
So when a new queen, when she's about a week or so old, will go off on mating flights. And the idea is that she goes out and gets mated. She will try and mate with anything up to 50 drones. If he succeeds in catching a queen who is flying along at 30 mile an hour and manages to mate with her.
On the move?
On the move,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
His equipment is stored inside out. So when he clasps the female, the queen, in flight, he inverts his apparatus, but in doing so, it paralyzes him. He then falls off backwards, snaps off his organ, and falls to the ground where he dies, having been paralyzed by the experience.
That's quite the kink.
I feel like that's a metaphor for something. I'm just not sure. Okay, so we've just heard
yet another society where the women are doing all the work.
I guess exactly. So
that's weird.
So that is the birds and the bees at its core. We have had a.
I see what you did there.
Thank you.
That's good.
Thank you.
Good, yeah.
Okay, Duncan, that was so cool. Thank you. Duncan Brown, beekeeper extraordinaire. Please tell us, what has your hobby taught you about yourself and life?
I think taught me to be connected to nature and how fragile is the whole web of nature. And I can see for myself as one bit of the natural web gets damaged, how many other bits it impacts. Mm-hmm. I think that's been the eye opener for me.
Yeah.
And it's taught me how much I enjoy teaching.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
That's really nice.
Cool.
And being enthusiastic about it.
Nice.
That's really wonderful. So, Duncan, you've got 30 seconds to convince us and our listeners to try your hobby. Go.
It is an endlessly fascinating hobby with so many different aspects to it. There is something for everybody, be it you want to make candles, you just love making honey, you want the botany of looking at flowers. There is something for everybody. But I do have to add, yes, you've got to be committed to it. Mm-hmm. Take it on as a serious hobby and do something for the natural world and for yourself at the same time as you get in sync with nature.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Beautiful.
That is so good.
Really
Duncan,
lovely.
What I love about chatting to you today as an expert beekeeper is this other perspective about hobbying, which is about the teaching side of hobbying. And this is such an interesting new kind of data point to our triangulation, hexagon. I don't know how many points there are now, but some sort of shape about the teaching of others and that you get so much fulfillment from it.
Honeycomb shape, I think. Would be
honeycomb. Oh, that's so good.
I
I think the last thing that I think is so interesting, and I wouldn't have thought about this initially, was I had an idea about beekeeping, and you make honey. That's one element of it. You make wax, you make mead. But the piece about the history and origin and use of elements of beekeeping at different points in history is so cool.
Yeah.
It's so cool. So thank you. This was, very enlightening for both of us.
Excellent episode. Loved it. So, Duncan, where can people find you and what you're up to? Where can people buy your honey?
Yeah.
By knocking on the door, really. But,
Fair enough. Well, in that case, Duncan, where can people find their local beekeeping society? What sort of website can
That's
they
a
go
great
to
question.
find that?
Yeah.
the BBKA, the British Beekeeping Association, they will point you in the direction of your local association. There are, I looked it up yesterday, 270 local associations all over the country.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get some people taking up beekeeping as a result of this episode, or at least just planting some wildflower seeds, leaving a bit of your garden to grow, and just looking after the little things, because without them we're all dead.
Amazing. Wonderful. So with that, Duncan, we're gonna say thanks so much.
Yeah.
Toodles.
That was our interview with Duncan Brown. We had a blast. Hope you did too.
But before we go, we want to share this week's celebrity hobby. Drumroll.
Did you know that Beyonce is also into beekeeping?
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow, Pete, what a well-timed celebrity hobby.
Absolutely. I do my research.
So cool. Yeah. And that's a wrap.
I've been Pete.
And I've been Kayla.
Rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. It makes us much easier to find.
And follow us on Instagram at howihobby.
Did you know we also have a newsletter?
I did. Subscribe for new episodes and behind-the-scenes chat.
See you next time.
Toodles.
How I Hobby was written and produced by Kayla Lean and Pete Falconer, with music and editing by Pete Falconer, artwork by Laura Walsh, and animation by Kayla Lean. If you'd like to be featured on the show, email us at howihobby@gmail.com, follow us on Instagram at howihobby, or sign up to our mailing list at howihobby.com.